Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate IQ, the show that brings deep insight into the South Florida real estate market. Today we have a very special show with a very special guest, my great friend Andres Korda, visionary real estate entrepreneur, co-founder of 3 companies and counting: Avanti Realty, one of the first paperless brokers in the United States; TTK Technologies, a developer of real estate technologies; and Portfolio Property Management Services. Andres, it is a great pleasure to finally have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's a real pleasure to be here, and congratulations with all the success and all the traction that the show is giving you. You provide great insights to the community, so we appreciate all that. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Andres. It's really been great response from our audience, and we've been very blessed to have guests like you. And I wanted to take advantage of you being here because this has been a year of great change in the real estate marketplace. There's a lot of things on the economic side that have changed. For example, increasing interest rates, markets that have oversupply, undersupply, but also for consumers, there is more information and more tools than ever. And I feel that we're trying to empower consumers, but it's also confusing. So I wanted to ask your opinion. What would be the most important thing that consumers need to really have a successful real estate experience?
That's a great question, and to understand and answer that question correctly, I think before going into what they need is understanding that what they want is to be wiser in terms of the decisions that they make and to be smarter in terms of real estate. So what is it that they need to get there? And that's what I live for. That is exactly what goes to our mind and our passion every day to try to solve that equation. And it's a combination of things that I'd love to outline and go through together so we can come up with a conclusion as to what are the most important of the elements that really consumers need to have access to these days to really be smarter and wiser in the decisions that they make in real estate. So first and foremost, I think it's human support. A lot of people are talking about eliminating the humans within a transaction, but I believe this is such an important transaction in everybody's life, or in their investments that they're making are so high in terms of the monetary amount that it's hard to eliminate the human factor. What needs to shift in the way that the human factor is presented. You have a new type of service provider that has to jump into the value chain with a great ecosystem around him and a great team to be able to service the consumer. More than having an intermediary in a transaction,
right.
You're talking about now having a service provider that's very well trained and equipped to address the needs. That's number
right.
one.
And so, for example, you know, there was in the travel industry where they tried to eliminate the middleman travel agent so that people could buy, you know, airline tickets online. Many people think that the real estate agent as a middleman is going to disappear. You're saying that the real estate agent is transforming
right.
into a service provider. Now, service providers usually have an ecosystem around them that requires a high degree of collaboration. What do you think about that?
And that is part of the key success features of a good service provider today, to have a team around you that it's very high level and that addresses each part of the process for the consumer, but you are the resource, you are that expert and that leader of the band that's, you know, knowing when to use each of the pieces and each of the team players to service your consumer, no?
That would allow someone to maximize the value of that experience.
Right.
Not just someone that, because they know something that you don't, exchanges hands.
Or because it has certain information that you don't, which used to be the past. They were gatekeepers of information that now that's the value they provide. So I think what's happening now in the industry is that the chain is pretty much the same from beginning to end, but the value of that human element and the service provider is just placed at a different part of the chain, and the consumer is looking for a different type of involvement of that human element that now has to be prepared for that, not just to open a door or to just provide a certain information that the consumer already has.
Right. And now talk to me a little bit about this human support element in the context of so much new and real-time data.
Very important. That's one of the other elements that the consumer needs today. So consumers want real time information. They really, on the one hand, another thing that the consumer has right now is that they have empowerment. So they're empowered with a ton of information, and they have it in real time many ways. So they feel empowered, but the consumer these days is empowered but uncertain, empowered but a little bit scared of all the amount of information they have. So the value these days is not in the data itself, because that's available. It's in the interpretation and the analysis of that data, and how deep you go in explaining the data to the consumer and making sense, because they don't want to do it on their own, and they're getting misled by a lot of the data that they get out there. So the consumer these days wants to have their own ideas and their own criteria and their own validation that has them feeling empowered. They want to have it validated by somebody else, and that's the role of mixing, the data with the right person.
Right. I mean, if now you go to Google and you put in any address and you get 50 websites with all the information in the world, the information itself is now a commodity. But it's almost like a mother with a child that has a fever. That motherly instinct allows them to know more or less what's wrong, but they don't want to risk giving the wrong medicine to the child, so they take it to the pediatrician.
They can even see the blogs of a bunch of people that tell you what you should do, but at the end of the day, you do take them to the pediatrician, correct?
Absolutely.
So it's like reading a blood test. You get a bunch of numbers and a bunch of even this is good, this is bad, but at the end of the day, you need somebody that could really give you a solution with the data that you get from the blood test. So the data portion is extremely important, because that's what's empowered the consumer these days, but that's what's giving new value to the right of service provider with the right element and ecosystem of technology around them. So one of the big issues that I wanted to point out, if you're talking about data, is the macro data versus the micro data, if you may allow me to do that.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that, because it seems that nowadays you have all this information about a city or a zip code, yet it seems that with platforms such as the one that you've developed, there's a very special kind of opportunity that presents itself at the micro level.
Yeah, and that's where the game changer technologies come about, or the game changers support with the right technologies come about for the consumer. Macro data is what's available mostly out there, no? And then consumers figure out and create their own assumptions and criteria based on this macro data. For example, you may say this is a buyer's market, which means you have, or the area that you live in might be a buyer's market from all the data you find out there, but that might be what is a buyer's market is that there's more supply than demand, so prices tend to be lower. If you're a seller, you want to reduce your price. If you're a buyer, you have more accessible to better access to lower offers and better probability of success there. So if you're coming up with those conclusions based on macro data, you might be completely misled by the data, because if you analyze micro, you might realize that your 3-bedroom that overlooks that part of the city that is built before the year 2000 and that has this type of distribution is in a seller's market. So everything around it, yes, the averages might be buyers, but yours is completely different. It's a seller. So going down deep is what we've really tried to really pinpoint in many of the technologies and service processes that we provide out there, so that now you're actually getting to the real conclusion on a hyper local environment, which is what real estate is.
Right, and it's almost like this, the best experience is the collaboration between now this empowered consumer and this advisor who has access to uncover opportunities from these commodity data sets, because they're put together in a way that is very, very unique, with very unique criteria and models.
Yes, the real estate process is about collaboration, and that's one of the things that they need. It's about transparency, which is one of the things that they need. It's about efficiency and fast answers when you need them. And you have to have the consumer feel that they're perceiving progress, that there's a roadmap ahead of them, and that within all this complexity of today's bunch of websites and data points from here, from there, etc., what consumers really need is simplicity. ease, you know, that comes down and that puts all this together with the right advisor and the right technology for them to really make the right decision. So as far as the collaboration part and as far as the efficiency portion, it's not just having technology that provides efficiency these days. So yes, the consumers needs technology. No, it's about really having that advisor with that technology giving you the output in the way that you want to consume the output. And I'll explain it very quickly. The consumer, if you're looking for a home, for example, needs to have an experience where it takes them from what can I afford? That's what you really want to know, and transform it very quickly into, okay, if I ask you a couple of questions, how much you have as a down payment, how much income do you make, can something gives me very quickly, okay, these are the type of properties you can afford, these are the level of payments that you can make, and where are those properties available right now, so that we can already start tapping into some of the things that makes the consumer feel, okay, now I'm making progress towards my end goal.
Absolutely. Talking about all these things, talking about the human element, the evolved real estate advisor, combined with all this data, and these two elements empowered by technology, how do you feel that we need to bring those together to maximize the probability of success in real estate?
You asked me at the beginning, what is the one thing that the real estate consumer really needs to have a comfortable and successful experience that maximizes value to them? And as I said, with the combination of all these things, the one thing, it's mix of the right, you know, data points and, you know, the powerful data mixed with the right advisor, service provider that's well trained, that knows how to interpret that data very well, enabled and has the right ecosystem, enabled through technology that brings all this together and puts them in the same playing field, that they can both understand, grab hands, and go through this process together.
I mean, you make it sound very, very simple, but you have dedicated your life as an entrepreneur to bringing these types of solutions to the market. So you have transacted hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. So I absolutely appreciate you sharing your knowledge with our audience that is always looking to do better transaction, better investments here in South Florida.
And I appreciate the time, I appreciate being here, and I think that, you know, to drive it home, if you're a consumer, if you're an agent, if you're a professional, or anybody interested in real estate, these are changing times. The market keeps on evolving in a very accelerated pace, so you need to be advised and have as part of your team somebody that's an expert in the area, in that you have to make sure it is enabled in the technology and using the right data points in a very fast environment, the way that you like it, the way that you feel comfortable, and that can help you bring that anxiety and that stress and that complexity to a level that you feel comfortable, that you can trust, that will be a very, very good process. And that only comes these days with a mix of the right human with the right technology that can absorb data and explain it to you right.
And you know, if history has shown us anything, is that times of great uncertainty are times of great opportunity. This is a wonderful opportunity to have this man here with us. Andres, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
to our
having me.
audience, thank you again for watching. Please keep your ideas coming. We have a fantastic lineup of future guest speakers and topics, but keep your suggestions coming. And until next time, have a fantastic day.
Bye-bye.